two different components, but at the same time, it belongs as part of the system, the systems that we use every single day in our regular lives. What is between both? Sometimes we need to recognize the needs that we need to develop. This is the Hacker's Corner. Hi everybody, welcome back. Welcome back to the Hacker's Corner. My name is Cristian Servín. I'm an associate professor of computer science here at El Paso Community College. I teach the computer science and other courses including cybersecurity, information technology, and artificial intelligence. As a friendly reminder, we actually currently running this binational effort called Hack the Border. Hack the Border is the effort of combining different efforts for professional development and a main event called Hackathon. A hackathon is an event where we have several students, professionals, who will actually develop solutions for our current problems that we have in real life here in the border. This is in order to enhance what we call experiential learning, and here in the border, especially with the talent that are between both cities. Hack the Border, you can find more information in hacktheborder.org. Remember that we're running a series, adversarial series for the border good. It will help you to understand what are the main needs that we have here in the border. And not only that, you will find very nice and very well articulated workshops where you can recognize needs in the areas that in information technology, and even if you're not technically prepared for information technology, you can learn a lot of this. So these workshops are developed precisely for non-technical majors. So please take advantage of hacktheborder.org. Check the schedule. Check also the news RSVP for the hackathon. The hackathon will take place on November 17 to the 19th, 2022 in the AST building. We're gonna have several guests to speak about the big needs that we have here in the border between Ciudad Juárez and El Paso, Texas. Today we have two guests. I'm very happy to share the podium with two of my friends and also colleagues. So I'm gonna, we have Isaac Perea and Gilbert Ornelas. I know both of them for a couple of either semesters or years. I'm very happy to have both of you. So can you please tell us your names, what are your affiliations, what classes do you teach, and what are actually doing here in Hack the Border? Start with Isaac.
Well, thank you, Dr. Servín. My name's Isaac Perea. I've been with EPCC, this is just one semester, but I've been teaching in other colleges for the past 12 years. But what I'm doing right now with EPCC, I got the opportunity to teach 3 classes, Linux, the beginning of Linux, the intro of Linux, but also the advanced of Linux, which is very common right now in the business field. And also the Dreamweaver class, which is a web programming class, very basic, teaching students how to program a very basic HTML website, but using the application of Dreamweaver. But I bring into EPCC a lot of years of experience. I've been in the IT field for the past almost 20 plus.
Wow.
Since 1997. I came to EPCC to learn programming, but I actually went into the field of networking, of computer hardware and networking hardware. So I have a lot of experience in that, and that's why I would love to come in. That's why I've loved coming to EPCC to teach, because I love showing the students not just the theory, but the practical behind everything that's being out there in the business environment.
You're a former student of EPCC?
Yeah. I did not graduate, but I did come to.
You took a couple courses.
A couple of semesters,
Excellent.
yes.
That's right. Welcome. Jill?
Thanks, Chris. Well, I'm Gilbert Ornelas. I've been teaching at EPCC since 2012 now. Mm-hmm. Mostly the introductory classes, mostly CS1, 2, and 3. And also the machine
computer science.
Yes, organization class. I love teaching. I love working with the students. And like Isaac said, I think something cool that I bring is like the experience from the outside. Students get excited when you talk to them about like how the field actually is, right? So you have class, theory, algorithms, everything, and then you get to answer their questions about like how is it once you go into the workforce, what kind of tasks do you get on a daily basis, so on and so forth. So it's been a good experience so far.
I think so. And both of you have a large and amazing experience in the workforce and industry. I know Gilbert for many, many years. And I know he's been, have built all this industry experience in computing, for example. I saw your resume, impressive resume, like all the work that you've been doing for all these years. You see perspective from the private sector all the way to the government sector. So I think there's a lot of value that you bring to our students in the classes, because you're not only just teaching a curriculum, which is a very good curriculum, by the way, but at the same time you infuse these concepts that the real world industry needs precisely nowadays. So I think I talked to some of your students, they're very happy with you. So like, this is a great classes. I often speak with them and they're always very, very happy about the courses. Now, having talked about these courses, you mentioned Linux, and you mentioned the fundamentals of computer science.
Yes.
This is a great combination, because when we talk about software, when we talk about hardware, we need interfaces that they communicate with each other. Okay, and you're talking about Linux, which is in previous conversations we have discussed why Linux has played an enormous role nowadays. Can you please tell us a little bit why is playing an enormous role nowadays? And I want you to start to mapping that with the workshop you gave previously.
Well, Linux is basically it used to be a free operating system, because with Windows and back in the day was Novell. There used to be their paid services that you had to pay the companies like Microsoft to run their servers. You have to buy their licensing, and that's where a lot of these companies made a lot of money. So Linux, Linus Torvalds says that's the one that created Linux. Well, thought, let's have something that's free that we could give out there. It's an open source, because Microsoft is more of a proprietary software where only themselves get to program whatever they want. With Linux, we'll open it up to the people out there. It says, all right, you guys have an operating system that you guys can, run a web server, run an Active Directory server, run a mail server, and you don't have to pay the overhead of a big company. This is something you could deploy in your companies, and it's been very famous. And now that it's out there, you got the Debian, you got the CentOS, you got the ones that I'm teaching right now in Linux is Fedora, you got SUSE, you got a lot of different, what they call a lot of different flavors out there for Linux.
They're called distros, right?
The
I have heard
distros,
the
yes.
distros of Linux.
Yeah, and so much out there that you could choose which one you can want to use for your own business or for your own, what they use for, like what we're using, and what I did yesterday is for the workshop. Mm-hmm. We use Kali Linux, which is another offspring of a Linux box, but it's more for using so that they can use for pen testing, to test the networks, or hackers have used it to break networks, break applications and whatnot, break passwords. So mirroring what we did yesterday as far as the workshop, we talked about packet capturing, and we used very theory. What is a packet? Since we work in the network, in the technology field, there's a lot of things are into place, and a lot of things that when you're on the network, as far as the Internet of Things, anything and everything has a MAC address. As far as your phones, now it's going to be your refrigerators. Anything that you want to connect to the cloud has a MAC address. So packets are being sent back and forth, and you capture those packets through an application called Wireshark and other applications like TC Dump and WinDump. You get those packets, and then you can start breaking it apart to where you could get passwords. You could get however your network is construct or the infrastructure is. So we're teaching the students how to understand the packets.
Okay, so let me just insert real quick, because this is for educational purposes only. You demonstrate the capturing of packages, and this is for educational purposes. I always have to emphasize extra that all the work that we do here at EPCC and these workshops is only for educational purposes. we're going to do this to tell them, hey, this is the way you capture passwords and credit cards. Go ahead and use it. But we recognize the vulnerabilities. Yes. Now, let me just unpackage a little bit of the conversation that you have, because you talk about pen test. What is pen test?
Well, pen test
stands for what?
It's penetration testing.
Penetration testing.
Yes, yeah. for networks or applications.
Okay, so we have a system that is supposed to be secure, yes. But at the same time, we want to test how secure that system is. Is that right?
Yes.
Now, what is a package? Just in very basic things.
Well, a package is, again, it's something that when you connect something to the internet, it pushes out zeros and ones, which is in the electronical field, binary digits. And that creates packages on the network, and what it does is just it sends out the information through binary information.
So in other words, you have entity A, entity B, they send information through the web.
Yes.
And these are called packages. Yes, that you start, actually, they're in form of packages.
Yes,
is that right?
Packages, yeah.
So that's why you're trying, just to make sure everybody understands. So we send information
back and
in
forth.
This thing called Wireshark. What is Wireshark?
Well, Wireshark is an application that it's called a packet analyzer.
It's a tool.
It's a tool you use. Either you can use it in Windows, you can use it in Linux,
mm-hmm.
and you could use it in a Macintosh
mm-hmm.
application. That what it does, it goes out there and deciphers what kind of packets are being sent back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
Like HTTP is a packet.
Yeah.
HTTPS is a packet. It's encrypted, but it still is a packet. FTP, like people that want to transfer files back and forth on the internet, file transferring protocol, it's another packet. So it captures all those packages and it breaks them up and it determines what kind of package it is.
Very interesting and very exciting, because we in previous conversations and in previous episodes, we talk about one particular attack called man in the middle. We didn't come up with that name. It's called man in the middle, which basically you have two entities and you have in the middle a sniffer.
Yes.
Yeah, and this is basically the job that this tool is basically doing while intercepting those packages. Sniffs the network, and they want to know what is there. It's like, here, this is what's happening. It's just really up to you what you do with that information. Mm-hmm. Gilbert, you're about to give a heavily lengthy workshop that you broke it in 2 parts. Yes. Tell us a little bit about this workshop.
So this is a DevOps workshop.
What is DevOps?
DevOps comes from development side, operation side, and then put together. So historically, in the software development cycle, you have a client asking for some software. You write some software, you test it on your computer, it's ready to go, and then you pass it over to the administrators, the ops side, and they're responsible for installing it in the system. Obviously, you do this once you feel confident that your software is working, and then you give it to them, and then they install it, whatever. Okay, so in the process, there's testing, there's unit testing, making sure everything works as expected. There's functional testing, making sure your software does what your client asked for. You got security testing. All right, like right now you said, making sure your software is secure, making sure that you can't penetrate it, so on and so forth. So you got all these things that need to happen before it's ready for you to say hey, it's ready for production. Well, DevOps, it's an automation process where ideally what you want the developer to do is just focus on programming. You commit your code to source control, like get repo. And then behind the scenes, you got an automated process that takes your code from the pipeline, and it does several things automatically. It runs your tests automatically, functional tests, integration tests, any security tests, security scanning for vulnerabilities, all that. If at any point there's a failure, it doesn't go on. The developers get feedback. Hey, something happened. It didn't go through. If everything goes as expected, at the very end, what you get is your software gets deployed into a production environment. Nowadays, you have companies like your Googles and your Amazons, and it's not like the old days where it would take days to deploy something into production. Nowadays, you have coders that code something, and every time they commit something to the repo, it's right away put into production. Now, that's scary the first time you hear that, because, well, what if there's bugs? What if there's vulnerabilities? What if I deploy something that does not work as expected? And that's going to happen. But the cool thing about having an automated process is that once you figure that out, you can write tests. Well, first of all, you can fix it, and then you can write tests on top of that to make sure that doesn't happen again, and then let the automated process take over and do the same thing, so that in the future, everything that you tested for is accounted for, and you don't have to manually do all that stuff. So the idea for this is that time is money, like they say, right? So with DevOps, what one thing that is rushed to do is to speed up the time to market. Okay, so all these processes that usual deployment goes through, if you automate it, obviously it's going to be faster. It's going to be repeatable, right? Because you don't have any human, right? It's all automated. So that's going to be faster. And as a result, companies are going to be releasing software that is not only faster, but that is also better quality, more secure.
Reliable.
So that's kind of what we're going to talk to students about.
This is scary also, because I'm a software engineer by training, same as you, and you both of you mentioned that things have changed. Nothing is like used to be like 5 years. Nothing is the same as to be like last year. With this automation of items, we're trying to reduce the error, because you may or may not know, most of the issues that we have nowadays are because it's human error, right? Someone didn't press the correct buttons, physically speaking. They unswitched something that it was not making sense, a piece of code or a source code, there was something completely out of a bug there, so everything was unconfigured, and most of the times comes from a human error. But this automatic system that you mentioned basically is being modularized to see, you know what, we're not going to go from step 1 to step 2 until this have already been cleared up, from step 2 to this 3. So there's a discrete ways to actually clear up.
Yeah, exactly. So you have what you call a pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the piece that automates the process. And at every step of the pipeline, called a stage, you can put in quality controls. So for example, you have your unit tests, which we've always had. If you've done software development properly, you have some kind of unit test.
Software development property, you said?
Huh?
Software development property, you said? When you have software development?
Yeah, the unit testing.
The unit testing.
Yeah, so for example, you have a unit testing, and now what you can do is at some stage you can add quality gates and say like, hey, you know what? If 80% of my tests don't pass, fail the build. Don't let it keep going.
So you have a threshold.
Back.
So you have a threshold to say, you know what, they have to satisfy at least 80% of this quality, otherwise not even bother to send for it. You need to
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's a quality gate checking for unit tests. You can have another quality gate for security scans. So every day there's new malware, right? New vulnerabilities coming up. Right. These vulnerabilities allow malicious code to take control of your system, so on and so forth. So what you can do is you can tell the pipeline, hey, if this software has any software vulnerability that is critical, don't let it go through the pipeline. Give it back to the developer, notify them so that they can fix it before putting it back into the deployment.
That's very interesting, and that's actually very, very nice. But for example, I might think as a software engineer, why we didn't have this before? Why you have to wait until DevOps to occur?
Well, it's not DevOps. It's
more like a model.
It's more like a culture, right?
It is a culture, because ideally for me it's like, do not deploy anything that doesn't have 100% accuracy. Don't let any bug to go there, ideally. But you say now you have a threshold to say 75, 85%, 95% that accuracy, which, by the way, for every device that you purchase, even the most expensive computers, they have only one level of accuracy there. And this is what Gilbert is explaining there.
Yeah, so I mean, DevOps, like you said, like the concept is not new. I mean, before now they have what they call CI, continuous integration service systems. You have continuous delivery, and those are just names. I mean, in reality, before you could do this, right? Like, I mean, if you got tired of deploying manually, I mean, we had scripts to deploy this. I mean, you can have DevOps just by writing scripts, right? You don't need any of the CI servers that you have today. So the concept is not so new. It's just that nowadays, like, people have realized the benefits, and companies are big on DevOps.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the first part of the workshop is mainly showing students what's out there, giving them an idea of what DevOps is. Okay, and then the second part of it is focusing a little bit more on the security aspect of things, what is now called as DevSecOps.
Mm-hmm.
So historically, you deploy a system, and you find a security vulnerability, and then you take it back. So up to now, like, a lot of the findings have been reactive. So with DevOps, right now there's a concept called shift left. Shift left meaning that your security checks are as far left meaning in the pipeline as soon as you can. So even in your IDE, you could have checks. If everything checks out, then you deploy. But you gotta check for security vulnerability as early as possible.
So you don't wait until the things crashes. You wait. You have that shift left to say, you know what, when this item is reaching out to this point, this is where the alerts happen, in order to just wait until you crash.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. So as developers, we want to get something working right away, right? So we all do it. We commit passwords into source control. Well, that's a big no, right? You shouldn't have passwords. So one of the checks there of shift left would be checking your code. Hey, I see that you have sensitive information in your code. Fix it.
Oh.
So instead of having the clear text password, your password should be calling from what they call a vault, where it's secure, and you just get the password whenever the software needs it.
One of the things that's a very interesting, that triggered our idea for what you did yesterday's workshop. When you receive some information using Wireshark, you retrieve that information, and then you use some kind of dictionaries in case there was something that you can hack, for example. Did I got it right?
Yes. Well, that's where Kali Linux comes in, as
Yeah.
far as what he's saying, those vulnerabilities that software has.
Yeah.
It captures those packets and it breaks it up. And if there's a password in either in an application or in a server or in anything on the network,
Yeah.
it captures those packets, and there's commands that you run in Kali Linux that opens it up. Like we have one that opens up we get into the wireless, for educational purposes, we get into the router and we capture the packet of the password, and we are into the network. Once we capture the packet into the password, we're into the network, and then we can see everything. We can see the software, we can see the hardware, and we can see how the whole infrastructure is running. And that's what it is with man in the middle, where once he gets the password, logs into the network, he's able to see through the application, through the network, what packages he can capture and what the maliciousness that malware does. He could infiltrate and put a malware into their network, and it starts feeding the data to wherever they want to send it to. So that's very important to know what he's doing as far as protecting their applications.
Yeah, and I think there was a connection between both of you, that there was in this Hack the Border, what we're trying to do is to create awareness, first of all.
Yes.
To say, you know what, not even if your password you think is secure, nothing is secure. We already talked about this, but what we're trying to reflect is that is not what has been happening or has been working for the past year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. It's obsolete, but it's what's happening futuristically speaking. These models, this culture, this pipeline that you, Gilbert, mentioned, it's something that we can start to incorporate into different stages of development, from hardware all the way to the highest level, the cloud. You mentioned Amazon services or Microsoft services, other services, which are actually the big giants now who are actually using or incorporating these services in their deployments. I mean, we have classmates who went to these big companies, and this comment that they say, you know what, this is where we're moving now towards that direction. I'm very happy to have this conversation with both of you, especially when we're developing this adversarial series for the border good. For the last comments, why do you think this the workshops that you have provided us help us for the work that we're doing in the border? Or do you think there's some particular issues that we can address in somehow with this? I know it's a very open-ended question, but I would like to see your perspective. It can be from education all the way to deployment in agencies like the ones that you work in. Do you have any comments about how can we apply it directly, or how are students?
Well, I mean, it's not just that we're in the border, but we also have one of the biggest bases in the United States, in Fort Bliss. So if you think about people coming to the border, like a lot of what decides whether you come in or not, like when you hand over your passport, there's systems, right?
Yeah.
So these systems need to be secure, need to have high quality in order, if that's gonna succeed. So I think that's how it fits in. Like I said at the beginning, DevOps not only helps products come faster to market, but it also helps them be of higher quality, and it also helps them be more secure. Okay, because it doesn't leave it all to the human factor. So I think there's a strong connection.
Absolutely.
Right there.
What about you?
Well, I see this as an opportunity to show the community and our students, which is, I think that's our foundation right there, what's out there and gives them awareness give them knowledge, more like it, what's vulnerable out there. You know, since we're living the border, there's a lot of traffic going to Juarez, coming to the U.S. So there's a lot of stuff that's out there that can be done maliciously, and we just want to give the students the awareness, to me, and through this, and the community, that how to protect your personal stuff.
Absolutely.
And how to protect, not just put a simple password out there, not put something simple like your social, protect yourself, because there's a lot of malicious people trying to capture that data and use it for malicious purposes.
Absolutely. Isaac Perea, Gilbert Ornelas, it's a pleasure to have both of you in this adversarial series, and thank you so much for coming to the Hackers Corner.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Christian Servín. I hope everybody is doing well, safe and healthy. Remember that we're running this adversarial series for the border good called Hack the Border. Please visit us at hacktheborder.org. Meanwhile, I hope everybody's doing well. Happy coding. See you next time.